From the stage to the boardroom. This is the story of my next guest, Aubrie Jones, owner of Hadco Staffing in Las Vegas, Nevada. She took nothing and built it into something, and I mean something big and impressive and successful. But it started with dance. Aubrie will tell you in this episode how the arts really helped form her into the kind of disciplined business owner is today. You think business owning a business is tough? How about having blisters on your toes from doing 5 days of ballet? She'll talk about how that made her a more effective and disciplined business owner. You're going to learn about networking, but the key to Aubrie's networking is your networking has to come from the heart. It has to be genuine and it has to be real. And lastly, referrals. She has made a life on referrals in her business, and she will walk you through how to get referrals in a very easy and effective way that won't make you uncomfortable. It's an incredible story. This is one I promise you, you're going to laugh, you're going to enjoy. So enjoy this episode of Leadership Lessons from Mayberry, brought to you by our incredible producer, Grace Dunbar. Well, listen, I just got some great news. My guest today is going to be singing the national anthem at the Nebraska versus Michigan game. Big anniversary. Aubrie, you got to start here before we get in. Tell me a little bit about this opportunity to sing in front of 89,000 fans at Memorial Stadium.
Right? Go Big Red. So I was in college, I was in a group at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln called Scarlet and Cream Singers. Sadly, it's not around anymore, but it's celebrating its 50th year of existence, and there's 87 of us coming back. Some people that were in college in the 70s and 80s, and me in the 90s. So we're all going to be singing the Star Spangled Banner for the Michigan game. We're going to see Nebraska kick their butt.
Well, we that will be. Do you believe in miracles? Yes, as Al Michael once said.
I do.
I can beat the Wolverines, but if it is, you guys will be singing it every week. I promise you that.
Right.
Let's talk about your Mayberry, where you grew up. Let's start there, Aubrie. You know how we start this show, the influences you had. So what do you consider to be your Mayberry?
So I'm originally from Ashland, Nebraska. I was born in Lincoln, but I lived in Ashland until second grade. And then my mom moved myself and my two sisters up to Lincoln. And I lived in Lincoln through college. And then after college, I left Nebraska and really didn't look back, but I love coming back home, and my family a lot of my family still lives there. And I'm really proud to be from Nebraska. I still am a diehard Nebraska fan. So, but I guess my influences when I was growing up, I'm kind of going a little all over the place, but I was a professional singer and dancer for a long time. So music and entertainment was a huge influence in my life. I loved Madonna, and I know people laugh at this, but I look back at my life and what she did for me as a woman, and I'm forever grateful, because I think people criticize her a lot, and I understand, and she's never claimed to be the best singer or the best dancer, but she was a businesswoman, and she changed, in my opinion, the industry forever. And
so let me ask, and I'm going to interrupt you. What did she do for you as a woman? I thought that was an interesting comment that you made, because she is a strong, strong woman and a marketing queen. But what did she do for you? How did she inspire you?
I think she made it okay to be a woman. And while I didn't feel that as much as probably some other women earlier when I was younger, how they felt, she just showed so much strength. She was an individual. She was a leader. She changed the game. And I love game changers. And for me, that's what I've tried to be. And so I think she was just so smart. And I think she also recognized that she wasn't the best singer or the best dancer, but man, could she perform. And for me, just because she was an entertainer, that I've tried to live my life that way, whether it was when I was professionally singing or what I'm doing today.
Yeah, and we're going to tie into that. But your life, we start out talking about singing the national anthem. Then we get into one of your major influences as a kid was Madonna. You go to Lincoln High, which was legendary for their arts
and the influence on kids like you, very artistic, had a talent there. It seems like your Mayberry has always been influenced by the arts. Am I right on that?
I would definitely agree with that. Yes.
And so tell me how that shaped you as well. Being introduced to the arts, the singing, the dancing, how did that influence you as a person today?
You know, I was at an awards industry event last night, and one of the women that was being recognized, she was a professional dancer, a ballerina for a very long time. And I thought about what dance did for me. And I think it taught me leadership. It taught me discipline. It taught me, or showed me that you need to put in hard work to see those results. I feel like truly, like, people that get involved in the arts, there's a love and a passion that not everybody has. And we also are a group of people who accept everyone and love everyone. And, you know, it's interesting, just like I mentioned, Scarlet and Cream, I'm still, two of my best friends that live in Las Vegas with me were my college friends. And another one works for me, you know, that was in Scarlet and Cream with me. And so I think there's this like camaraderie and that is unmatched that you find in those kinds of environments and that kind of arts world.
I was interviewing someone last week who, in essence, you could boil it down. He pours concrete in a lot of ways, right? Now, his business is much more than that, but he's talked about how the arts influenced him as a kid, because he believes that when he pours concrete, you know, that he's painting a picture. It is art. It is not, hey, I'm pouring a concrete slab. And that influence on him today, that's why he does such beautiful work, right? The way he was influenced. You talked about leadership and discipline that the arts taught you. How often are you using what you learned growing up in the arts, being in musicals and singing and dancing? How much are you using that in your business world today and your business acumen today?
Every day. I mean, you know, being a business owner is not easy. And if you don't have discipline, and, you know, there's days where you just don't, like today, I didn't want to get up and work, but you have to be disciplined. I mean, it's not, somebody else isn't going to do it for you, you know, when you're a business owner. So the discipline part and the dedication, I use it every day. And as far as leadership goes, you know, I don't want to jump ahead, but I feel like I'm a good leader in a lot of ways, but I feel like there's still so much I need to learn and grow. But I think, again, that ties back into my discipline, that I can recognize that. And I know I need to continue to educate myself and be disciplined to keep elevating that leadership level.
Well, Aubrie, a lot of people are going to sit here and say, dance taught you discipline. I mean, dance is fun. You know, if you think of putting your kids on a path to business ownership and business leadership, you don't often think of arts, but you're like, look, it taught me discipline. So tell me how dance specifically, when you think back to your days, really ingrained discipline in you. Walk me through what that looked like.
Well, dance is fun, but I think people forget how hard it is when you're putting point shoes on and you've got blisters all over your feet and you're doing you're going to dance class 5 times a week. And I mean, the kids these days, like, it's unbelievable. Like, I can't even imagine, I mean, the time that goes into this. And as far as dance is concerned, like, it taught me that I had to be responsible. I had to do my work. I had to show up. And that's.
Yeah, there's no doubt. That is a great example. You don't think about that. You don't think, I mean, it's similar to an athlete, right? When you're going through the blisters and the pain and the physical pain, and yet you come out on the other side with this product that's wonderful. So you go to college, University of Nebraska, Big Red, and you stay in the arts. At any point, Aubrie, what is influencing you now in college? What are you thinking you want to be and want to do 4 years later when you graduate?
Oh, I totally wanted to be a singer. Like, I wanted to be discovered and be a singer or an actor. And I always knew I wanted to live on the West Coast. I didn't want to do the New York path, even though everyone kind of pushed me, like, because I was a singer and dancer, and those were harder to find back then. People that could do
Right.
both. But I knew like I wanted to start writing songs and start, it was just, and, in junior high, I got a band together and we started doing gigs all over Nebraska. And so, this all started, when I was 13 years old, and it was when Tiffany and Debbie Gibson came out, and I was like, I can do this. Like, and so we put this band together, and it was awesome. I made money, but it was like so cool, like just to perform. We were performing at proms and all across Nebraska, and we did a gig in Ashland one time. Remember?
Oh yeah, I was there.
Yeah. So, but during college, I knew that I wanted to take this leap, and I knew it was risky. And, being a parent now, if my daughter said that to me, I'd be like, no. So I can only imagine what my mom and my dad were thinking, but it was just something I had this drive to do, and I did it.
Yeah. Well, so when does it hit you? Because you had a path. You went to Nashville as well, and you spent some time out there. The entire time, when was the point where you said, hey, I'm not sure this is what I want to do and I need to think about business?
Yeah. So when I graduated from college, I had a job at Opryland in Nashville performing, and I had some great success in Nashville. I was fortunate enough to audition for this show that was at the Ryman, which is the original Grand Ole Opry. And I did a show there for 2 years. It was called Lost Highway, and it was the story of Hank Williams, and I played his wife, Audrey Williams, ironically, Audrey. And ironically, she was a terrible singer. So I was like, here's my big moment. I'm on the Ryman stage. There, Reba McEntire came to see us, Vince Gill,
Yeah.
and I'm, I have to sing off key. And I'm like, not my dream that this happened, but I knew after I left Nashville, I went to LA, and I immediately landed something. And I knew like there was something in me that this was my path. I was supposed to be doing this, but something changed in me. I'd say a couple of years into being in LA, and it was the recognition of like the reality of like, I know that I'm not going to be discovered, or that I'm not going to take this path any longer, because I know that I have something else to give to this world. And that was the moment that I decided to leave and make a move to come to Las Vegas. I still performed for quite some time, and I think I was trying to find my way of like what I wanted to do. Never in a million years did I think that I'd be doing what I'm doing, though.
Yeah. And we're going to transition that in a second, but I've got to hear the Reba McEntire story because,
Yes.
by the way, full disclosure, Aubrie's my cousin. I've known her all of her life, but I remember she came backstage. Tell us about what she is the pinnacle of country music. And at that time, Vince Gill, the whole thing, she's doing that duet. What was that like? What was that conversation about?
Well, I barely remember it, but all I know is my dressing room was up on the second floor, and most of the celebrities that would come see the show would come up by my elevator. And I literally had just started to like take my costume off, and I had the shirt untucked, and I was like, I normally would never ask to like take photos because I just never wanted to be that person. But I did with Reba. I was like, can I please take a picture with you? And she was like, oh my. And I was a very like comical part in the show because I had to sing off key. And she was not a great woman. She was not very kind, Audrey Williams. But people loved it because they thought it was really funny. And so she complimented me, and I just was like, oh my God, it was really cool. I mean, that was a really special moment in my life. I also got to sing on the Grand Ole Opry, and I got to sing in tune.
And you're going to sing in the circle.
Yeah, and so the new Grand Ole Opry has been moved, and Ryman is the original, and they kept some of the original stage at the new one. So yeah, I got to do that same summer. So it was great.
Aubrie, this is so many people go through this, right? Where they have this dream, and the dream is, look, I want to be, whatever it is. In your case, it was a performer and singer. Was it a difficult moment in your life where you're like, this isn't it?
People ask me that a lot. Like, do I miss it? I really don't, because I feel like I'm a people pleaser for sure. Like, I know that about myself. I feel like I did it a lot because I loved it, obviously, but I look at myself and I think, I don't know if I was doing it for the right reasons, but I feel like I've always been somebody that, and I'll admit this, that I need to be recognized. Like it's something I'm working on and I need to let go of that. But I think a lot of people that are A types and, business owners are kind of those people. But it was a moment of like, this is a closed chapter for me. And it was scary more than anything because I didn't really know. I kind of had a plan, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And so just the reality of like, I need to stop this life and move forward to something. I was like, I need to get a real job, which isn't fair to say because I really totally had a real job. Like I was working all the time, but in my head, but it was definitely scary for sure.
So you went through that experience where you had to kind of decide, look, I'm going to jump in. I'm a connector. I'm going to try real estate. 100% commission, by the way, nothing guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Looking back, there are so many business people out here watching this show that say, I'm going through something similar. I need to make a transition. Any advice you would give to that person? And when you look back on what you did to say, hey, here is the process you should go through or some things you should think about when you're making a transition from company A to company B, industry A to industry B, anything you learned from that?
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing I've learned in my life and the reason I think that our business is successful and with any transition that I've done from any kind of career to another career path is one, you have to trust your gut. And I know it sounds so simple, but I don't think a lot of people do it. And I think they question themselves. And I think that if you know and trust your gut, you're usually making the right decision. If you're mentally in a space that, you're at that level of where you can make those decisions for yourself. I also think that it is critical in anybody's success to look at your network and to look at who's going to support you because that was a big decision factor in every step that I've made in my careers.
So tell me how you develop a network.
Well, I'm a very social person. Being a singer back in the day.
I'm surprised by that.
Well, I know, totally, right? Because we're not related or anything. No, but you have to get out there. I think I see some of these people that like, I don't know how you're doing it. I don't know how, but you know what? Last night I was out until almost 11 o'clock at this social event. It's like, did I want to go? Not really, but it's like that. You have to make those decisions and you can't stop. People get complacent and they, once they start going, but you can't ever look back. Like your network in my world, Vegas is like one of those cities where if you aren't in the network, it's hard to break in. But I am so proud of like the relationships I've built. I've always tried to be as ethical and have integrity with everything that I do. I'm always very honest, and I can't tell you how much that has just paid off. And it sounds simple, but it's really hard for people to do that. Yeah. So before you jump in to starting your own staffing business, you have to make a decision on your path. And you start out with real estate and sales. Were you successful? And what motivated you then to take that next step to go work for corporate America before you started your business? So yes, I was successful. I became the number 2 agent in our office. And I was really fortunate. Like I had people that were selling and buying and then referring me. I mean, I truly I owe that to my friends and referrals that sent me business. But I also hustled. I worked hard. I went in every day to the office and, I wasn't afraid to do all those things you need to do. I put the work in. Of course, I was part of the Vegas debacle of, short sale world. And I just started to see a path that I was like, I don't know if I want to continue this because it was very scary. And that point in my life, I sometimes look back because I feel like, did I fail myself by not pushing through? Because I think I could have pushed through and still done well. But there was something in me telling me I needed to make a change. And, I would still dabble in singing along there every now and then. And I started singing, doing corporate gigs like with the band that I used to play with. And I was offered a position to be a salesperson inside a company called a DMC. They're a destination management company, but basically it's a corporate event planner. And I was scared of the market. And that was one moment, though I do look back in my life and kind of like, God, Aubrie, like you should have pushed through. But I also don't feel like I would be where I am today if I didn't. So I have a lot of faith in my life. That's something else that has changed in me. And I know there's a reason why I did that, like why I made that decision. And it was the best decision because ultimately it ended or got me to where I am right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about referrals. So many people say, I can't ask my friend. I can't ask my acquaintance for a referral. It's uncomfortable for me. I just don't like that. How did you get to the point, and what did a referral look like for you? If you're coaching someone on how to get a referral, the Aubrie Jones way, what would that way be?
Don't be afraid to ask. There's a way to ask. You know, and here's the thing. Don't be that person that just calls to ask for favors. You know, I've learned so much. I still write handwritten thank you notes. I still like reach out to my friends. I still try to go to social functions, even though I'm exhausted because I want to like support this person and what they're doing and what they're trying to do. And I'm telling you, that's why my business is successful. It's because I had the support of Las Vegas in the hospitality industry. And but that's what I can say mostly is like, do you know those people that always call you just to ask you to do something, or can you donate here, or can you volunteer, or can you give a gift for this event or whatever? And I'm always the yes person when it comes to that kind of stuff because sometimes I can't always give my time, but I also have noticed those people in my life that's all they ever ask me for. And then it's never like just checking in, hey, we should go get a glass of wine or we should go grab coffee. And so try to be that person that's not only reaching out for favors, but also reaching in to check in and say hello. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. And it makes that referral easier, right? Yeah. I mean, it's natural. Do you think that people are afraid of asking for referrals because, you know, it's mechanical, or they think there's a script?
No,
and how should it sound?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think that people are afraid because they think that their friends will think, well, is that the only reason you need me?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something interesting. You know, everybody always tried to get me into direct sales, you know, like Mary Kay or, you know, those kinds of companies. And I am not that kind of salesperson. And the reason is because I was like, I would never want to like attack all my friends and be like, well, come on, come be part of my team. And like, you know, because I knew that their success was really going to rely on them. I didn't feel good in my stomach and heart to try to promote somebody to come be a salesperson when I knew that that's not what their path should be. And so that's why I never, like, part of me is like, God, I wish I could have been that salesperson because, you know, those women make a lot of money and, you know, they're living a very fulfilled life. But I knew that was not my path. But yeah, so I think people are afraid that they're going to think that their friends are going to think, well, is this all I'm good for? And you need to get over it. Like, you know what? We're all here to help one another. I mean, my Lord, it's like, that's what I think as people, we need to like forgive ourselves. We're human. Hey, everyone wants to support a new business owner if you've been a good person and you're kind and you're good. So be kind and good, and don't be afraid to ask your friends. If they're a real friend, they know, they get it. You know what I mean?
Right.
They do. They want to help you succeed.
Yeah. Wonderful advice. Now, you go to work for a company that helps other companies when they come to Vegas, right? Do conventions, get talent, which you learn a lot from that experience. But at some point, again, you're at that junction where you say, you know, I want to try something. I want to do something different. Walk me through that moment that you knew it was time to go out on your own.
Yeah, it's kind of like an emotional moment in my life because there was some personal things with my husband and daughter that like happened within 4 days of each other. And everything's fine now, but it was kind of like a reality check of like, what the hell am I doing? Like, and my husband said something to me, and it was just like this trigger that like was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I working my ass off every single day for somebody else when I am capable of creating great things? I am creating great things doing what I was doing. And also just not being really recognized. And again, it goes back to that recognition I was talking about. You know, I was tired. And my sister, Sarah, worked at the same company. I was the VP of sales and she was the director of ops, and she was done too. And it was this moment where and my husband said this thing. He said, I've never seen somebody work so hard for somebody else. And I was like, right. And so then I was like, I'm quitting. I was like Jerry Maguire, like I had my moment. And then I was like, what the hell am I going to do? So then I called my cousin Timmy. Because I always tell this story is that I feel like you and I have had very similar sales paths. And I've always looked up to you and, your sales style and your likability factor and just your hard work. And so, but I wanted to talk to you, and you started talking to me about your business, and you said some things to me, and I was like, oh my God, like we've hired staffing companies at the company I was at, and it was always a disaster. And I was like, I should start a staffing company that specializes in the event industry. And I started doing my research, and two key things I read is like, make sure that you're in a destination or a city that uses staffing companies, and make sure that, that you'll be able to be, they'll be utilized. And there was one other thing, and now I'm drawing a blank on it, but I was like, I knew there were staffing companies in the city, but I knew that they did not have the background that my sister and I had in the events industry. So I knew that's what it was. It was the niche, like have a, specialized staffing, what are you specialized in? And there really wasn't. There were some that said they were, and, they do a great job, but they didn't have the extensive background and the logistical brain that Sarah and I have with large, massive events and conventions, because that's what we had done for the past 15 years.
Yeah, I remember that conversation well. I was in an airport, by the way, talking to you, and I could sense that light bulb go off in your brain. That you're like, I can do this. I'm talented, and boy, have you done it. You have built an absolutely monster business, but it wasn't easy, right? So first, you had to figure out, what exactly do I want to do in the staffing world? So again, business owners are watching out here. Walk them through what they should do to figure out how to develop that niche.
Yeah, well, I think I want to say one more thing, because I think this is important for business owners to hear, is that my husband was totally supportive of this. And, but he was very like, we need to get a franchise. Like, he was very much, and honestly, you were too, because you had owned, you owned a staffing company that was private franchise. And I came this close to buying one. Like, I really did. And there was something, again, going back to my gut and my intuition, because I think that's one of my strengths. There was something just telling me, like, I can't do this. Like, this isn't the right move for me. Like, I'm going to be restricted. I'm going to regret this and have to pay them a lot of money. But also, they would have guided me in a lot of the things that I've learned along the way. But I decided not to. And Josh, my husband, was, again, scared out of his mind, but he believed in me and supported me. And that was the best decision I've made. And was it scarier and harder? Hell yes, like, for sure. But would I be where I am now? Maybe, but I wouldn't be as successful. And I don't think I would have learned as much as I've learned and grown as much as I have as a business owner and as I did today. But that one thing I will say is that it is so scary, excuse me, making that jump or that leap, of coming to that realization of, like, you want to open a business or you want to run a business or start a business. It's so scary, but you've got to believe in yourself. And I know this sounds super remedial, but, like, you're your biggest cheerleader. When everybody else was, like, drowning or not thinking this was going to work, like, you have to continue to be that positive person, building yourself up. Because believe me, there were many days where I came back home and, wanted to cry. Like, what was I doing? I walked away from a really high paying job, benefits, 401k, like all this stuff. But then I was just like, you know what? No, I can do this. And so I'm a very self-motivating person, and that comes from that discipline that we talked about before. But I think that business owners need to always have that constant reminder and self-talk, to build themselves up, because you have to be your biggest cheerleader. If you're not, you're not going to make it.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, if you talk to 10 people before you make that leap, 9 are going to tell you don't do it because most are involved, right? And they're working for someone. And then you're going to have that one person who says, boy, you can sure do it.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to this. You had a chance. So you figure out, all right, here's franchise, here's my ownership. So you work through that. You say, hey, it's better for me to do my own ownership, which was home run for you. But now you got to say, staffing's everything, right? You've got healthcare staffing, you've got event staffing, you've got industrial staffing, office staffing. How do you work through to determine that niche? Because so many business owners, no matter what they're opening, staffing or whatever their business is, they have to, am I going to be a generalized, business? Am I going to specialize in a niche? So how did you say, this is where I'm going?
Well, so when I opened Hadco, I knew that I was going to do most of the work in the event industry, but I had been told by numerous people that I had to diversify my business. And again, in my gut, I didn't know if I wanted to do that or needed to do that, but I listened because, they knew better than me, at that time, especially in the staffing industry. And so, you and I talked about this a lot because, and you were one that said we should do it. And you're right. Like a lot of businesses will need to diversify. COVID, I think in so many ways saved my business, or not saved it, but changed my whole business model, which I'm going to answer your question, but I need to tell this story.
Yeah.
So we opened in May of 2018 and we were in the black within 5 months. And my initial niche was the event industry, hospitality, focused on the people I knew in this city that would support me and started doing that. But on top of the event industry, there's also a lot of companies that, bring in furniture for conventions and for special events. And so I had the connection with the woman that, so I used to give her a ton of business. Well, she introduced us, we started doing labor, and it was not what I expected and not what I wanted. It was not a good feeling, but it was a huge account for us. And so during COVID, as you can imagine, my business, we were 19, we were killing it. 2020, we were going to have our record year, and then COVID happened. And not only did my business just completely dissipate, everyone in the hospitality industry's business did.
Right, because Vegas shut down in a sense, right?
Shut down. I just started seeing all the shows, conventions that we booked started to, March, obviously, April. Okay, well, May will be back. Okay, May comes. No, we're not doing May shows. Well, we'll get them the shows that we have in August. No, everything. And then it just, I was like, oh my God, this is what. Anyway, fast forward, I put the work in during COVID, and that's the differentiator I feel that has raised us to the level that we're at now. I stayed. I mean, yes, did I have some days where I just sat at home and started drinking wine at 2:00 in the afternoon, watching the news?
Most of America.
Plenty of those days. But I was disciplined. Again, I put the work in. I looked at my business.
Let me interrupt you. So you were disciplined. So you're building, no money's coming in. You have no business. But what you're doing is you're preparing for the reopening by getting shows, talking to companies. Is that what I hear you saying?
Well, no, because that's good. So I was not approaching companies because everybody in this industry was just devastated. There was a lot of conversation going, is it the right time to reach out to people? And, but so what I did is instead of talking about business, I sent cards in the mail and little, things like that or I would say hey, do you want to do a Zoom call and just catch up? I didn't talk about business. It wasn't appropriate for our industry. And that's a differentiator for me too, is that I have sensitivity and I'm very empathetic. And it's you have to be as a business owner, I feel. But I also, again, have good gut. So long story short, but what I kept doing during COVID was I was really working on some of our processes and procedures that we never really got a chance to really hone in on because fortunate for us, we just started blowing up, with work. But Sarah and I really looked at it, and I made the decision to fire a bunch of clients. And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. My niche and what we are good at, what we are different, what makes Hadco special is Sarah and I's knowledge and industry in the special event and convention meetings and event space. There is no one in this town that has the experience, the longevity, the connections on the staffing side that Sarah and I do. And it was the best decision I could have made.
Right.
It was a big account for us. And Sarah even questioned me. She's like, I don't know if we should do this, Aubrie. Like, we don't have any business. And I'm like, we're done. Because I looked at the return on it and I was like, yeah, I can make this much money in 1.5 shows, from a year's worth of work. And it was terrible work. I really learned during COVID, what is your time worth? And that is one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my life. And that's, if I can give you one piece of advice, I say this to so many people, and I say it to young people, like, what is your time worth? Because if you don't value your time, then you're not going to be successful.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break in the show so that you know about Farmers and Merchants Bank of Ashland, the sponsor of Leadership Lessons from Mayberry. Few banks can say they've been around for 139 years, but Farmers and Merchants Bank of Ashland has. Why? Because they are locally owned, locally managed, and they are focused on you. They offer full service business banking, and you're always going to talk to a live person when you give them a call. They're commercial lenders. They are more than happy to share their expertise and to help you navigate any business financing that you may need, including SBA, TIF, or NEDCO financing. Check them out at fmnb.com or give them a call at 402-944-3316. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
One of the few people who was firing clients during COVID. I mean, that just shows you your vision.
But I think it's important to I couldn't do that at my old job, but I knew this is what was going to, one, bring us more happiness, because it wasn't something we enjoyed. And quite honestly, we'll get calls all the time for administrative positions or like medical. Everyone jumped on this medical bandwagon in the staffing industry because that's what was exploding at the time. There's no way in heck I was going to even touch that. I knew, and that's the thing. You need to be able to admit what you're good at and what you're not. And when people call me and say, hey, we're looking for an administrative, I dabbled in that. I wasn't good at it. Like, that's not what I know. And so I'll refer people to competitors of mine, but I would hope that they do the same to me, because I know that they're not going to do as good a job as Sarah and I in the convention and meetings event space. I don't know if they do, but that's also why I think that our business is exploding, because I am good that way. Like, we try to support our industry, whether it's with a competitor or not.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, you do. And I'll just say it. You're better than the competition because of so many reasons. But before we move on to that, and I do want to talk about that, you also, though, had some challenges. Part of why you were thinking about diversifying, what do we do, is that with your niche, you had a lot of long hours, right? Not necessarily long hours, but you had odd hours, right? Sometimes you had to work on a Saturday or a Sunday. And because you are who you are, you were going out and meeting your clients on a Saturday afternoon when you had a show or a Sunday or a Monday night. So you worked through that. So again, how, and I'm going to walk you into this because I know what the answer is, but I'm going to let you tell it. You've gotten to a point where you've been able to balance because you did something very important with you as a leader and the way you transitioned your team. So can you explain, because again, so many business owners might say, that's great, I want to do that, but I don't know if I want to work every Saturday and Sunday, and I need more time to do things that balance my life. So how did you make that work?
Well, for the record, I'm still going down on Saturdays and Sundays.
You are.
No,
but you have made some very important changes in your
I did.
Haven't you?
I think, when you start succeeding in a business and you start making money and it's so rewarding and you take care of your team and, those kinds of things. But we've talked about this a lot. I was like, I don't know how to get to this next level. it was just finally coming to the reality of like letting go of some things. I'm a control freak. I'm type A as you get, like, but it was the decision of like, I need to let go. I promoted my sister, Sarah. I made some key hires, and was it again scary because I'm like, well, I was just starting to make really, really, really good money, and now I'm going to pay more people. But it was, again, the best decision I could have made. And so I think as a business owner, like, it's hard because, you put so much work in the beginning and you just feel like you're just bleeding money, And so when you finally start to make it and you start making serious money, it's like you enjoy it. But you're still working your tail off, But you've got to come to that realization of letting go of some of that, because quite honestly, for me, I'm the sales, but I am on site doing logistics and operations, but it's allowed me to focus on the bigger picture of the business. People have said this to me, like, you're so in the business, you can't focus on the business. Everybody says that, but I feel like now that's what I'm truly doing.
You're working on it,
looking at the big picture. And, going back to the diversification, like, when we were talking about the business, like, I specialize in the special events. Here's another thing that I would say to people, and I know this may not relate to everybody's business model, but it will in some way. I've diversified myself within the meetings and events space. And that is another differentiator with us, is that some of our competitors, they only work with like corporate clients. We work with trade shows. We do two of the largest shows in Las Vegas. So we work on the trade shows, association business. We work with corporate direct. We work with third-party meeting planners. And there's nobody else in town that has all of those different entities. And that is what keeps us busy year round versus we have a show once a month. Yeah.
Right. Up and down. That up and down revenue stream, this allowed it to steady out, right?
Yeah.
That steady revenue increase or revenue.
Yeah.
But one thing, and I don't want to see if this is translated. You say what a lot of us, I remember every new hire I made when I was a business owner, I was like, it's going to cost me. But what I found most of the time is that if I made a good hire, it actually brought me more money. I don't care if it was a good admin, good salesperson, whether they were touching revenue or not. Every good hire I made, it seemed like my business grew.
Yeah.
So the fallacy do you agree that it is about, you said, I'm just starting to make money now, I got to hire, I'm going to spend a little more. But has that translated to spending more and less revenue, or do you find that it has translated your good hires into making more?
Well, it's freed up my time to be able to, I mean, you've got to look at this as a business owner, but to answer your question, no, yes, I've made more money, because now it's freed my time up to focus on the sales side, or to look at the bigger picture of the business, or to develop the team so that I don't have to be down there every single weekend, to do shows. So the answer is yes, it's been a positive thing. And that's the thing I think that's hard for business owners, is we get greedy sometimes. And yeah, I mean, you want to enjoy what you've put your hard work in, you want to enjoy what you're doing. But it's like, if you could just get over yourself a little bit sometimes and realize this is actually going to be a better thing. And not only that, it also helps the rest of your team, because now they're growing, they're taking on more responsibility, but it's also taking some responsibilities off of, some of your leadership as well. Some of those things that Sarah, my sister, was doing, now we have the extra support, to take some of that off of her plate so she can develop and hone in on some of those bigger picture items too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it does. And here you sit, you've grown every single year. You've added staff. Your reputation is impeccable within that market. People know now, right? Hey, I'm going to Hadco, whereas you had to fight, to build a reputation. What's your secret sauce, Aubrie? When you look back on it, what is your secret sauce that makes Hadco so special, so unique?
I love our team so much. Like, we've really developed quite an amazing culture here at Hadco that I'm really, really proud of. And this goes back to during COVID. I would send emails out. It was just a blanket email, but, I copied hundreds of staff. And And the first thing I said, I'm sorry, we don't have a show, because everyone's like looking at their emails waiting. But I just wanted to reach out and say hello and just let you know we're thinking of you. And Sarah and I are working hard to, when this comes back, we're going to be ready to go. And I can't tell you how many people just were like, you're the only company we've heard from. And I know that my hard work and upbringing in Nebraska, and I seriously mean this from the bottom of my heart, is what has made Hadco special, is that we have brought that family environment into our world. And I know everyone's like, oh, we have such good culture, like we take care of our people. I know every single one of our staff's names. And if I don't know it the first show, I will know it by the second show. I know that.
And by the way, when we say staff, we're not talking about your 8 or 9 employees. We're talking about hundreds upon hundreds.
We do CES, which is the largest show in Vegas. And we have over 630 staff that work a day for like 6 days. And I'm not joking you. I know them. I know, again, if I don't know them the first time, I will go up and introduce myself. And what I think is special is that I'm the owner of the company and I'm down there being a line monitor and helping my team. And I will always do that until I retire, because you lead by example. And again, I know it sounds easy and simple, but we do a lot of these things called bag stuffing. So, when you go to a convention, you'll get handed a bag when you register and get your pass. And I love bag stuffing. It's fun. I'll get down there and help the staff. And this one kid, his name's Anthony James, and I love him. I know he's had a hard life, and it's like, but he's one of our hardest workers. And he's just like, this is why I love you and Sarah. He's like, nobody else is going to come bag stuff with us. And I'm like, I want to be a team player. And like, I won't ask you guys to do anything I wouldn't do. And that is the truth. And I stand by those words. A lot of leaders will say that I wouldn't ask my team to do anything I wouldn't do, but then you never see them do it, right?
Right. Yeah. We can't wrap this up without talking about you as a woman owner, because
Yes.
you are very proud of it. You and I have had conversations, and I know it's so important to you. First question I've got for you along those lines is it tougher for women to be a business owner than men? I mean, have we transitioned to that period where that's the olden days, or is it still harder for females to be in that position of leadership and ownership today? Or are we beyond that?
So I don't think it is. I don't think it's harder. I actually think in today's space, like, it's actually an advantage. I'm WE Bank certified, which is, it's an accreditation that a lot of companies can use for diversification credits and things like that. So I urge any woman-owned business to get involved with women organizations or to be certified, because it just does give you that extra clout. And it's an organization that, again, supported me through COVID, that, with so much resources and connections and so forth. But no, I don't. Well, here's where I think that I'm different than a lot of people is I'm not woe is me. I believe that you create your own destiny. I don't care if you're a woman, you're a man, what color you are, what race you're, like, I think that you need to put all that stuff behind you and you create your own destiny.
Yeah.
I think I've lived that way. And, I've thought a lot about my life in the corporate business. As a woman, there's been so many things that have happened over the past, 10 years, with the #MeToo movement and all of that. And I've thought about moments in my life where maybe there was some things that, I was like, yeah, that probably won't fly today, and things like that. But I never allowed it to get to me. And I also know that I'm resilient and strong. But it takes me back to my days of discipline and hard work. And, being a performer, you get criticized all the time. I love when people tell me how I should run my business. It's like, not that I want to hear, but people that I'm like, I wouldn't listen to them for the, it's always
right.
I want to tell you how to do your job. But I think about that. I was a strong character, you know what I mean? And so I know that not everyone has that in them. So all I can say is, like, don't play the pity party game. Buck up and if you're a business owner, you got to be strong, and don't play that game. use it to your advantage. I mean, I'm proud to be a woman-owned company. Hell yeah, I am. My mom was one of the hardest working women I watched grow up. You know, like and again, it gets me emotional because it's like we were poor. Like we did not, you know, like, but my mom, you would have never known it because my mom worked her butt off, and the work ethic that she instilled in my sisters and myself is the greatest gift that I think I could have. And that's all I hope that I can give to my daughter, is to just show her that hard work pays off. And, but being a woman in today's age, like, I think it's an advantage, and I use it to my advantage.
I love it. Absolutely. And listen, just to echo your mother, my Aunt Kay, wow. Incredible woman, great role model for so many. All right, we're going to do 3 and out, Aubrie. This is kind of fun. This takes us out of the show. So I'm going to call it 3 and out.
Perfect.
A little random, a little crazy. Give me your best memory of going to a Husker football game, since you're going to come back and sing the national anthem. You're the best memory of it.
Oh my God. I mean, probably when Tommy Frazier ran.
One thing you could tell on the air.
Probably when Tommy Frazier ran that run.
Against Florida.
Because that's what my sorority sister is still married to Tommy Frazier, but I was in college. I graduated in 95 when we were back-to-back national champions. So it's like, I was there in the glory days. So, I mean, every single one of the games was amazing.
Yeah, that was a run for the ages. All right, number 2. Was La La Land overrated?